Hello, my sober lovelies. Before we dive in, I'm really excited to announce my group coaching program for women is live, and you can join now. So excited for this because let's be real here. Quitting drinking isn't just about saying no to the glass of wine or booze, it's about what comes after. All the fear, the boredom, the late night anxiety, and the stories you've been telling yourself for years. And that's where my Rewired Sober group coaching program for women comes in. It's only $247. I'm being totally transparent on the price. It's for 3 months, and you'll learn how to shift your mindset, build habits that actually stick, and question the core beliefs that have been keeping you stuck, and find healthier ways to deal with that loneliness and that now what feeling. The best part is you don't have to do it alone. We'll have live group coaching sessions weekly, and there'll be a bunch of women walking through it with you. It's not another cookie cutter sobriety program for mommy vloggers. It's neuroscience meets real life, and it's designed for women to help you not just stay sober, but actually feel good living sober. You can join anytime, and I'd love to see you on the inside. So start today, get instant access. The link's in the show notes. Hey there, and welcome to You've Been Selected. I'm your host, Kate Vitella, and something tells me you didn't just stumble across this podcast by accident. Maybe, just maybe, you've been called here, like selected by the universe for something more. So let's get started. Okay, welcome back to another episode of You've Been Selected. It's your host, Kate. And today I want to walk you through something that I have been creating. I've sort of poured my heart into this little project here, some of my own raw truths and questions that I pondered on in the early days. And so I thought I would bring it here as a topic of conversation, as well as an invitation to check it out if you want to. And I'm going to link it in the show notes. The course is called The Gut Check. It's a private course for self-inquiry. And it's kind of like what it sounds. I mean, come on, you get the picture here. If you've been stuck in that space where you're not really at your rock bottom, but you're not free, then this is for you. So I built this because I remember going through these phases, those exhausted feelings of wondering if I had a problem, right? I had this whisper. I mean, I kind of knew. Well, and it got louder and louder, right? There were days when I was willing to listen to it. There were days when I was willing, mostly when I had been really beaten down or I was like super hungover or shaky. And there were days when I really tried to push it aside, but the whisper never went away. It never went away. And so I was just too afraid to look at it for so long. And so I thought I would walk you through some of the shifts that changed things for me. And I want to start by saying this is not this is not a sobriety boot camp. This is also not a am I an alcoholic quiz, right? I was talking to my friend about this. I'm working on this, I'm creating and I'm writing the script for it and I'm on camera, I'm filming the modules. And she's like, wait a minute, you're going to sell a course where people are asking themselves if they're an alcoholic and they're going to pay you for that? She's like, you know who's going to pay for that? Like all kinds of fucking no one. I was like, touche. And that is not what this is. Because I can tell you, if I were listening to this and someone said, I developed a course where you can come to the conclusions if you have a drinking problem, I'd be like, you can fuck off, you and your dog. My dog's pretty cute. So that is not what this is. Like I said, a private place for self-inquiry. because when I was at this phase myself, w I wanted to ask questions, but I didn't want the questions to give me away. I did not want to go to someone and expose myself and say, "This is how much I drink," or, "Hey, do you wake up shaky and sweaty and, covered in vomit?" Or, "Hey, I was just wondering if you woke up next to a stranger this morning." You know, I wasn't ready to have those conversations because I didn't know anybody in my life that was even going through that. Like I've said in the past, nobody in my life had ever set foot in an AA meeting. Nobody in my family had ever been arrested for anything or gotten a DUI like I did. So long before I really hit the bigger bottom, there were small bottoms on the way. That sounded funny. We all wish for a small bottom. But there were mileposts on the way where they were more internal than any external consequences. And I just wish I would have had someone or somewhere, a space where I could quietly look at that without that feeling like I needed to perform or come to some kind of conclusion. And I go over this in one of the lessons that the gut check course is not about reaching a diagnosis. And I'll get to that further in the script. But if you've heard me talk about labels, I'm really not a fan of labeling people with things. I mean, diagnoses have a place in the medical community for various reasons, right? But when it comes to issues like this, sometimes labels can just put us in a box. So I'm gonna go back to like why I created this and why I created any of this, why I do the work I do. And it's all to help my former self, right? They say you're best positioned to help and serve the person you once were. So when I came upon this realization that I'd been selected to do this work, it was like, what can I create and put out into the world that I wish was there when I was going through it? And when I look back at those mileposts where there was, small stumbling blocks, small, consequences from drinking, pain, embarrassment, nights I wish I could take back, small painful moments, I realized that I didn't see the pain as enough. And maybe it was because I didn't even see myself as enough. But it was like I didn't validate that the pain, the internal pain, the rumination, the feelings that I was having, I didn't give those space to breathe. I just powered on. And I wish that I had paused, because my brain was always telling me, "Oh, it's not that bad. Other people are worse." No, we love to benchmark, what are our friends doing? What's our peer group doing? And I can tell you another reason why coming to me during that time and asking me, like, "Hey, fill out this questionnaire. Let's see if you're an alcoholic." I would have been like, "F off, dude." You know who taught me how to drink? My nurse friends, a group of registered nurses. And we were all over 21. Do you know who else taught me how to drink? My family. My parents taught me how to drink. So if I would have been going down those traditional questions, the answers would have been like, no, 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 and fuck you. Or the answers would have been something like, yeah, me and everybody else. Yes, we've all woken up with a hangover. Yes, we've all drank and did things. Everybody. It was sort of like everybody in my universe drank too much, or at least drank a lot, so I did not feel I stood out. The only part where I knew I stood out was that gut feeling. And that's again, the gut check is the only thing that separated me in my mind was the gut feeling and the pain and the regret and the anxiety, things that nobody could see. You know, those are what kept me feeling like something isn't right. I'm different. Like I am waking up in a hell of my own making and it's in my mind. And we're all meeting for breakfast the next morning, getting Bloody Marys, laughing about the night. But deep down inside, there was parts of me that were like, this isn't funny anymore. I'm scared, you know? In one of the modules or the lessons, I talk about fear versus curiosity. And I think it's important to distinguish between those two because, as we've all heard, fear can lie to us so much of the time. And there's a lesson I put in there, fear versus logic. And fear is like the master of disguise, you know, because it shows up in our lives as common sense and it will keep telling you, you're fine, you're overreacting. But fear keeps you stuck because, as I explain in the course, it's part of our brain, it's part of our biology. It's trying to keep us safe, to stay stuck in the same patterns. And I explain all this in the course, but um, when I talk about fear versus curiosity, I think that's a part of my personal story that, again, I wish I would have paused and observed because I was never curious when I was drinking heavily. I was never curious about um, what it would be like to be sober. I mean, there were moments when I thought, how weird for someone to drink tea in the evenings versus a beer. Like, that's weird, right? And I was that person that when someone else would say they didn't drink, I would be like, boring. And you're weird, and I probably don't want to hang out with you because if you don't drink alcohol, I don't trust you. Like, that's the kind of person I was. But I never paused and asked myself, like, do I really know what sobriety would be like? And when was the last time I went a significant period of time without drinking? And probably one of the more powerful questions was, what if it wasn't too late in my life to rewrite my story? Like, what if I'm not stuck in this image of being a party girl and careless and reckless and always drinking copious amounts of alcohol? Like, what if it's not too late to change, to become something else? I got sober at 38. So late 20s, all through my 30s, you're really kind of becoming an adult during that time and trying to, stake your claim in the world. And so I thought, well, this is it. This is my personality. This is my identity. Like, I'm not, you don't change. It's not like I'm going to grow up at 38. So I felt like it was a little bit too late. Like, I had already waved the flag that this is who I am. And I think a lot of us can feel like that because I never got curious. And sobriety, gosh, the recovery and sobriety journey has taught me, like, you get to reinvent yourself over and over and over. You get to change as many fucking times as you want. You get to change your personal style, your hobbies, your crowd, your social circles. You get to change your taste in music, your, you know, your house decor. You get to change your career. You get to change your politics. You are allowed to change. And what if it's not too late? What if the story that you have projected into the universe, and not to mention fucking social media, what if it's not too late to change all that? And a pause would have been a beautiful thing. In the gut check, I call it the pause before the pivot. Because so many times I think when someone approaches me about the questioning, like, hey, I'm going to pull you aside and ask you something, like, do you think I'm an alcoholic? You know, I think what's on their mind, and it certainly was on mine, was, what do I do next? Like, if this person tells me, yes, you have a drinking problem, or yes, the textbook says you're an alcoholic, then what? It was like I immediately went to the pivot, the future trip, oh my God, I can't go to those meetings. I can't sit in a church basement. I can't, what about, future celebrations? Like, no, no, no. So let's just give space for the pause to breathe. And I love the questions on the reflection prompts in my course because it just reminds me that there is so much power in that pause. And you don't have to future trip about, what it's going to be like. You don't have to diagnose yourself and then future trip about, well, guess I got to do all these things, you know? Look out, church basements, because here I come. I hope there's a lot of Folgers coffee and, folding chairs and toothless humans because I'm probably going to be stuck there forever. You know, okay, maybe you didn't think that, but I did. The other thing about curiosity for me is I didn't really get curious because I was afraid of the truth. You know, I was afraid of what it would mean for me. And back when I got sober, even though, it wasn't in the dark ages, it was only 2018, there still wasn't the social media presence of people recovering out loud like there is today. It's pre-pandemic. Instagram wasn't as, exploding with recovery content. The Sober Curator, the online magazine that like dominates the airwaves in terms of content and messaging and dominates print about, we're all on the Sober Curator team. Like we contribute in every aspect of sobriety. And that didn't exist pre-pandemic. These meetings online didn't exist. And, there were podcasts and there were people talking about it, but I didn't know. And I felt like you had to know, right? You had to kind of know someone on the inside. And so I really reiterate curiosity being a key to change in the gut check course because it really lets you wonder without judgment. And I want to circle back to one of the things, when I'm talking about why I created this. One of the first opening lessons in the module is your pain is enough, right? And you hear all those tropes like, you don't have to hit rock bottom. And everyone's rock bottom looks a little bit different, but I wanted to just give you the validation that the pain you're feeling is enough, right? That gut feeling, that nauseous, churning, shame, sweating, or even that quiet whisper that says, God, you're a loser. Or why? Why did you drink again? You told yourself you weren't going to drink. Why? Like, that's enough, right? If something feels wrong, that's enough of a reason to look closer. So I hope this course is like an invitation, to get curious, like I said. And I put in a lesson in there about asking better questions. You know, we tend to quickly go to, am I an alcoholic? But there are so many better questions that resonate, especially when you're in this limbo phase. It's not so much, am I an alcoholic, as is this working for me anymore? You know, am I in alignment with who I want to be? And am I free? You know, there's a lesson in there on reframing what consequences look like. And again, this is something that people come to me and ask, like, hey, is this that bad? Like, or I mean, like, doesn't everybody have a DUI? Or these are they want to tell me, like, these are my consequences. I got this, I have this court order, I got in trouble at work or this or that. Is that bad? That's probably not that bad, right? Like everyone does that. I mean, and I think we get stuck there. I think we get stuck comparing consequences. I know I did. Because I can tell you, the more I drank, the more I hung out with people who drank as much and more than I did. So what started as a classy friend group, I'd let the occasional friend in that just went over the fucking top because I needed them in my life. I needed a benchmark. I needed someone around me that was doing it worse than me. So I could always find, someone who had it worse off than I did. And together we would rationalize like, oh yeah, you you had no choice but to drive home that night. I mean, everybody has a DUI. I mean, everybody has 3 DUIs, like who doesn't drive drunk? And some of that's true, but it helps keep you stuck there, when you're benchmarking. And so there's a part in the gut check where I talk about reframing consequences. Like I ask people, what if we took away all those traditional labels around what a consequence is of drinking? And what if we just ask the question, are you in pain? And I mean, is that powerful enough? Because I often tell people it's not how much you drink, it's not how often you drink. Really, it comes down to two undeniable factors. They really are, have you had consequences because of your drinking? And have you tried to stop and failed? And, if the answers to both those questions are yes, then you may want to look a little further. But if we say that a consequence is going to jail, well, a lot of people could say, no, I've never been to jail. I've never gotten pulled over. I can't tell you how many times people come to me and open with what they haven't had happen to them. I just want to let you know, my name is Sally. I've never gotten a DUI. I've never gone to jail. I've never gotten fired from my job. I've never been in a fight with my husband. I've never lost my kids into CPS. Oh, okay. I don't care about that. Like, I don't care. What I care about is, are you in pain? Do you fucking hate yourself when you look, in the mirror in the morning? That's enough, right? Let's talk about internal pain as a consequence. And one of the things that I mentioned about internal pain is acknowledging that you're even worth looking at that pain. Like, we get so caught up in war stories. We get so caught up in is it bad enough that people would feel sorry for me that I'm on the side of the road with one tooth and my head blown off or, my hand blown off? Boy, that's really extreme. I'm not very good at riffing the last minute. I often go dark, right? Like I'm taking this dark. My head blown off. Okay, fine, you win. Your head's blown off. But it doesn't have to be these big, ridiculous stories. Like you are worth that living in pain simply because you're living in anxiety, that's enough. Wow, the garbage man is here and just taking that trash out, dude. I mean, maybe that's a sign from God. Like, we're taking out the trash. We're doing the gut check. We're taking out the fucking trashy, the fences that keep us in. Um, so I hope this is resonating. The other piece here is there's so much power in doing this in private because, as I've said before, sobriety is such an inside job. I mean, of course, community is huge. Like having friends in sobriety, God, that saves my life every day. I'm getting ready to go to Seattle to a big sober event. I mean, it's I don't know what I would do without a sober community. But no one can make you get sober. Like no one and nothing. And I say that over and over again, but I'm going to elaborate that on a little bit here. No spouse can come to you and say, well, get sober or get out. That's not going to do it for you. Sure, you might cave one way or the other. It's not your kids. It's not your partner. No one's going to browbeat you or shame you into it. We think that. We think that will help. We think that we will punish you. We will lock you up. We will take all your privileges away. We will shame you. We will do it all, maybe out of love. I am here to tell you it's not going to do it. No one is going to do this for you. There has to be some internal private shift, that starts with a private, quiet whisper. That's where the real, transformation starts to begin. So there has to be some quiet spaces for you here to pray or to meditate or however you drop in where no one's watching, where, no one's really judging or there's no expectations. You just get really clear. And I guess I would ask you, things to get clear about is, there the things to get clear about, what stories are you telling yourself about all this? And maybe ask yourself, what are you really afraid of? Are you afraid of a label? Are you afraid of being called an alcoholic? Are you afraid of the stigma? I was. Do you have FOMO? Yes. Are you afraid to face your uncomfortable marriage? Like maybe your marriage is a little uncomfortable. Maybe your sex life is a little uncomfortable and you're afraid. I know I was. Just at the thought of leading a sober life, I was like, it's done. It's over. I'm over. Right. And I've said this before, like, I thought that everything that I had come to build as my identity was over. My social life, my personal style, the way that I moved about the world, you know, that it was over and that I would be relegated to church basements. The only fun I would ever have would involve a potluck with a crock pot of meatballs while we sat around and read from the big books of Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm just here to tell you those actually are really fun get-togethers, but, I had this image in my head of everything I was gonna give up and this pathetic version I was going to become. And I can tell you, those fears that were in my head, right, they were unfounded. I didn't know that that's what it was. I had only seen the movies. I had only read a few books. You know, I had really nobody really gave me any insight. This was all made up in my head, like entirely made up. But that story and that fear, oh man, that kept me in an iron cage. I mean, you would have thought someone locked me in a cage and threw away the key. The funny thing is, it was just in my head. Like corny Narnia shit here, right? But the key was inside of me all along. Like some serious Narnia here. So I'm cracking myself up. And here's the other truth. I gotta say this. You can't fool yourself forever, right? The booze is coming for you. It always does. It's not your friend. Alcohol is a liar and a thief. The alcohol industry knows this. I talk about this in the course as well. The alcohol industry gaslights the fuck out of you. Gaslights the fuck out of you. This industry has some of the most robust marketing teams in the world, marketing geniuses that know just what to say, just what to poke to install that little bit of fear, little bit of FOMO. They know just what images to project at just the right times. The Super Bowl, in between a game, when you're feeling a little nostalgic, right before your wedding, here's some champagne. You're watching a fashion show and everyone has an Aperol Spritz. I mean, the marketing here is genius. And I'm not trying to let you off the hook here because sometimes I see sober influencers or coaches blame this whole entire thing on big alcohol and the marketing and alcohol's the devil. We've been duped. And that is a big part of it. I certainly agree with that. We have been sold a lie, you know, but again, we're locked in a fake cage and we hold the key. So I don't care if other people drink, but I hope that you're open to understanding that you are being completely marketed to. You know, you're being sold on a daily basis, probably even every few hours as you flip through a magazine, as you listen to a podcast, as you go down the street. There's a sign, there's a gas station, it's everywhere, selling you the idea that alcohol is connection, celebration, or it's self-care, right? And the part where we get sort of duped is that in the beginning, it is those things. It is fun. I'd be lying if I said some of my boozy memories in the beginning weren't like hilarious, fun, awesome times. Like I'd be totally lying. There were some awesome times where nothing really bad happened. It's pretty harmless, cheesy girls' nights, dancing, fun, silly, in the beginning. But here's what happens is that alcohol is so addictive and we don't realize it because it is churched up with color and taste and foo-foo umbrellas and glasses and drinks and celebration. And we don't realize how quickly we become addicted and how insidiously, quietly slippery it becomes embedded into our psyche, into our everyday routine, into our physical chemistry, our physiology, and we become mentally and physically addicted to it. We don't even realize it until it's almost too late. So, there's multiple pieces around the alcohol industry here. It's such a nuanced topic. There's so many factors, and I'll do another episode, maybe with someone who's a bit more of an expert on alcohol, the marketing, big alcohol. But it's this right? It's not as cut and dry as saying the alcohol industry lied to us. It's their fault. Well, we still smoke cigarettes too. I mean, the cigarette industry, the big tobacco lied to us too. We know better, but we still smoke cigarettes. We still light up. We still vape. We're not idiots. We know that inhaling something into our lungs is probably not good. Just like we know on an intellectual level, drinking ethanol and asking our poor little shot liver to filter it and funnel it and break it down into, we know intellectually, like, this can't be good, dude. Or my liver's going to give out at some point. You see those people who they've been drinking for decades and their liver is like failing and it only takes them one or two drinks to be completely hammered. What's happening there is their liver is shot and it cannot filter. So anyway, why am I even telling you this? I don't know. The point is that I want for you to have a place to go for quiet inquiry. And I'm not very salesy, so I don't even know if I'm selling this very good here, and I don't really give a shit. What I hope for you is that there's some kind of comfort in the modules, in the journal reflections. I sold the course for $27, and that's what you spend at a dive bar on a good night. And so it's not a giant financial commitment, and I coach women one-on-one, but I do not coach men one-on-one. So this course is for men and women. And I want to offer more things for both men and women at a lower price, more accessible. Because to work with me is a commitment. It's a financial commitment. It's a time commitment because it's big, big transformation. We're going in hard and deep, and we want to uncover some tough, difficult situation subjects. We're unpeeling some layers. And so I really want to create things that are easier, accessible, less of a financial commitment, open for both men and women, and, that just really start firing some curiosity. Because again, we are asking the wrong damn questions. And curiosity is the thing that I remind all my clients. I probably hashtag this a million times on Instagram. I should tattoo it on me. Stay curious. If anything, stay curious. Stay open to what could be, to how you could rewrite your story, to what you could become, the freedom you could experience. All I'm asking is for you to stay open to that. And I hope you check out the gut check. It'll be linked in the show notes. So thanks for hanging out with me. Thanks for tuning in. You can find me on my website at katevitella.com. You can also connect with me on Instagram at katevitella. I would love to hear from you. Any feedback or questions, shoot me a note. So until next time, peace within and bullshit out.